I'd like to introduce Susan Dalton. Susan Dalton is the president and co-founder of Northern Illinois NOAA. She has also served as a NOAA board member and as a chairperson of the 5 NOAA national conferences. Ms. Dalton directs a program for the state of Illinois addressing the transitions needs of blind and visually impaired teens and is on the faculty of Northern Illinois University, Department of Teaching and Learning. Ms. Dalton is the parent of 3 adult children, 2 of whom have albinism. Your second presenter this afternoon will be Julie Urban. Julie Urban is the vice president of NAPVI and the mother of Rebecca, who is 32 years old, blind with additional disabilities. She has been a certified teacher of students who are visually impaired for more than 30 years. She has been on both sides of the table of IEPs. She has taught all grades in public school, in preschool programs, in residential schools, and in infant-toddler programs. She has become an advocate for families and their children, especially those who do not use speech to communicate. Could you please join me in welcoming our presenters this afternoon?
Thank you. Okay, hi everybody. I like being up here. I kind of feel like queen of the world looking down on my kingdom. This is so strange. But anyhow, because you're here and we're discussing early intervention, so I'm assuming many of you either have children or other family members who are very young, and you may be new to the vision field. So I think it's really important that we do a test to get everybody warmed up, okay? And I want to see how much you know about the eye and vision, okay? And I'm already going to tell Dr. Thompson here is not allowed to participate, okay? Okay, anyhow, okay, true or false? Now raise your hand if you know the answer, and Donna's going to give a prize to whoever has the right answer. Okay, the part of the eye that gives its color is the cornea. True or false? Wait, don't say it out loud. Yes, the girl in the pink? False. What's the part with the color? The iris. Okay, she gets a prize. Good. Okay, next one. Golden eagles can spot rodent colonies as far as from 2 miles away. True or false? The lady in the green? True. But the animal with the sharpest vision is what? Do you know what it is? It's not the eagle. Who knows the one with the sharpest vision? Yes? Falcon or hawk. Okay, is the falcon a hawk? Kind of. Okay, that's who. He gets a prize too. Okay. Okay, next one. True or false? You can answer this one, Dr. Thompson. Flies have 4,000 tiny eyes. Yes? Did you say true? False. They have 2 eyes, but 4,000 lenses within them. Did you know that? Okay. Okay, now how about this one? I'm going to skip that question. Okay, an ostrich's eye is, okay, I blew that one. Okay, the question is, what animal has an eye bigger than its brain? And that's an ostrich. Okay, skip that one. Multiple choice. Okay, here's a quote. Mine eyes have seen the glory begins what song? I'll give you choices. The Star-Spangled Banner, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, the Gettysburg Address, or La Marseillaise? Okay, this lady here in the purple. That's right, Battle Hymn of the Republic. Would you like to stand up and sing it? Okay, we're almost done. When were the first eyeglasses invented? I'm going to give you a choice. In the late 1200s, in 1725, in ancient Greece, or in ancient Rome? Who wants to guess? Anyone that didn't answer yet? Want to try? Okay, we're going to give, who wants to guess? A, B, C, or D? Yes? B. Wrong. The first eyeglasses were in the late 1200s. And I understand that they were invented in China. That's right. Okay. All right. How many, okay, 2 more questions. How many eyes does a worm have? Yes? The gentleman here? Correct, no eyes. Okay, and then the last one, what is the lifespan of an eyelash? These are important questions. Lifespan of an eyelash, any guesses? No. Anyone? You want to get, okay, yes? 5 years, actually, you're close, approximately 5 months. Okay. I know, I'm just kidding, 5 months, okay. But anyhow, thank you for participating, and that's just to get you a little loosened up for our discussion here. Okay, I'm going to keep Donna working. Now at this point, I prepared a handout with just some childcare routines. But the thing I want to mention before we get into this, early intervention, this is discussing what you want to do with your child from the time they are born until they turn 3 years old. And at that point, they go into the school system. Sometimes these years can be some of the best in dealing with professionals, because the professional's job in this area is to not only work with the child, but to work with the family and the siblings and anyone that has contact with that child to help you come up with just activities and just methods of working with the child that will really help prepare them for when they get older. This is a crucial time in the child's life because so much development is going on. The brain is developing just like crazy. Little synapses are forming, and every new thing they learn is increasing, upon other things that they've learned. So it's a real important time, and it's an important time for the family as well. Hopefully, many of you have been in contact with your state early intervention program. It varies throughout the country. There are no standards or no norms for services available. And in some parts of the country, they have teachers of visually impaired, or in Illinois, they're called developmental therapists that specialize in vision, which are teachers as well, but then they're also trained to work with early intervention. But you should have someone on hand. If you're not able to have someone on a regular basis to do direct teaching or instruction, they should at least be there, consultative and working with other developmental therapists with your child. How many of you have already been in touch with an early intervention program in your area, in your home area? Raise your hand. Okay, and are you're getting services as we speak? Okay, well that's wonderful. And I'm not so much going to talk about those services, but what I want to really emphasize are things that you can do at home in your daily routine that can really be helpful, and they can be turned into learning experiences for you and your child. So what I've had here, okay, in the first page of the handout, it talks about routines, and the important fact here is that your infant really learns by doing something and having a reason to participate. The more you do things for your child and you want to be helpful, but always think of opportunities that come out throughout the day that, thinking if you let the child learn from that experience, the better you're off. Just thinking about your day-to-day activities and things you do around the house, there's so many things that your child can be working on with you or learning while you're doing an activity. So I'm just going to use one example of so these are just, sorry, that's the next page. But anyhow, just different skills that you can work on by the first example. It's like the child, if the child is crawling or walking toward the high chair, some of the skills they're working on, okay, they're working on their gross motor skills, they're moving, they're not being carried there, they're moving on their own. They're starting to learn their place in space, they're learning orientation and mobility. They learn where to go for that. They know it's mealtime, so they know to go toward the high chair. And also, it's just an opportunity to have them explore and, move throughout the house. If a child's going to indicate they want to get up, they're working on their communication skills. They can do this either verbally, or when they're young, they can just start making noises or reaching their hands up, but they're communicating. And they're communicating with you, and they're getting a reaction. So they learn that by doing this right action, they're getting a result that they want. When a child's just sitting in the high chair, sitting in a chair and putting a bib on, they're working on their gross motor skills. They're learning to balance, to sit up straight. Also to anticipate, what's to come. They're in the high chair. They think, okay, this means food's coming. So I'm learning that's what happens in this location. As a child gets older, you start to offer them new options. If they're going beyond, formula or breastfeeding, they're starting to get food. They can start to learn choice making. Offer them one food or the other. They can just learn that they can choose one. And then it eventually leads into decision making. So they have two options, and then they're going to decide, what is the one they want the most. And it's another really good learning experience. Instead of being handed one thing all the time, they're starting to make choices. And then eventually, when you start to let your child help with feeding, they can work on fine motor skills. One of the first things I always liked are with Cheerios and learning to use the pincer grasp, you can lay them out, but even handing the baby one by one, hand them a Cheerio on the end of your finger and watch them grab it with their pincer. It helps to develop that grasp. And then also just learning by feeding themselves. If you have items on their tray or their high chair, they're learning scanning. They're learning to search for things and looking back and forth to find things. And also you can have stuff moving across the tray so they can learn tracking skills while they're doing the act of feeding. Okay, so the handout I put together too is meant for kids of variety of vision issues. So some children who, are totally blind or have more significant visual impairments have to rely more heavily on other sensory areas. But certainly kids with albinism, even though they have a lot of really good vision, they can be trained or worked with more extensively to use their other senses when something isn't as easily seen, within their view. You think about it, like how would a child know when it's mealtime in your house? How would they know unless the food's right there in front of them? Can you participate here? How would a child know that it's going to be mealtime? Smell. Okay, they smell the food cooking. What else? Yes? Okay, making noises about food. Other noises they might hear, some clanging around in the kitchen, pots and pans. I'm a noisy cook, so I make a lot of noise in the kitchen, the water running. Okay, and then also too, another thing, just a certain time of day. They may know that every time, day at noon, that's when it's time to eat. So, that's time for their meals. It's important when it becomes mealtime, or to help them understand that it's going to be mealtime, is to give the child some feedback. You can, talk to them and say, about 11:30, say, it's almost time for lunch. Start talking about it. And then say, Johnny, are you getting hungry? They can anticipate that it's lunchtime. We talk about pacing for mealtime, but just moving in kind of a systematic or smooth pace for the child, letting them not rush into meals, but, having them a nice system for them to understand the mealtime's coming. Giving them some verbal directions. Say, okay, come to the table or wash your hands. They know that mealtime's coming. You can give them physical guidance, walk with them or carry them. Say, let's go to the high chair, we're going to eat now. Learning tactile cues they can have. You can hand them a hot dog. When you hand them things or something and say, this is a hot dog, it's hot. So they're starting to learn concepts as they're eating. Also the same thing with just different tactile things, this is mushy food, the mashed potatoes are mushy or sticky, things like that, things that are cold, learning new concepts while you're feeding. Also, some of the auditory cues, they may hear the timer on the stove, set it off, they hear that ding go off, that then, it's almost like the Pavlov's dog. They start salivating, they anticipate the food's coming. We mentioned too about the smells. The smells says something's cooking. One thing too that you can work on to help the child when they're starting to do self-feeding or feeding themselves is to think about contrast. And I'm not sure what color, if you have a tray on the high chair, what you use, but if you can make the dish that they're using, if you want them to eat out of a bowl or even just have the food on the tray, to try to find something that can make the contrast between the food and the surface more visible. And this will really help the kids be able to localize something and pick it up. Sometimes, if you have dark food, if you have maybe a raisin or something would be more visible on a white surface. But if you have dark color food, maybe a maybe light color food, you could put a placemat or some color, a darker thing on the tray to make it more easy to see where the location is. This is even true with dishes, if they're starting to use cups and bowls, to make sure that it's a different color than what's on the surface. On modeling, if you want to work, I think sometimes the kids with albinism, although they see a lot, seeing at a distance isn't necessarily as good. So if you're trying to model eating, or proper eating behavior, they may not be observing it as well if they're sitting farther away. So you might have to model how to hold the spoon, how to scoop things up, and then eventually how to cut. One of the good points on this, if you're going to demonstrate, the feeding and moving the spoon to the mouth, is to go behind the child and work from behind to do it, because then they're getting a better action of how you bend the arm and bring it up to your mouth and things like that. So instead of going at them, to go behind to help them assist with that. Let your child especially learn how to take turns. You can do this during feeding time. Maybe if you're feeding, you let the child take one scoop and then you take a scoop and serve them, because sometimes it might take a bit longer. They might not be getting as much in on their own. You can expand the behavior, giving them more independent opportunities in eating and, doing self-feeding, making things a little more challenging. I think it's good even just like getting some small peas on the tray and letting them kind of slide all over, and then they kind of have to really look to find them. It makes it more challenging and it helps them use their vision better. Make sure you're responding to behavior. If the child is doing something that is a good behavior, you want to be sure to reinforce it and always give them praise for that. And if they have a negative behavior, throwing food, doing things that are wrong, you really need to address that and work on responding more positively to the good behaviors, and try to extinguish something that's getting out of hand negatively. And then also too, it's important too to mark the end of an activity, saying, okay, time's up, or you're finished, it looks like you're not eating anymore, so dinner's over, and then you end the activity. So they have a nice routine, understanding about the mealtime process. We're going to go on to playtime, and a child with a vision impairment might know it's a playtime just by, you might have a certain time of day that's kind of the free time or the relaxing time, maybe after meals. Take out some music and put some soft music on, or some lively music, whatever you're up for, so that they know that it's playtime. And also, too, they might have a certain area of the room that they know is playtime, to put them on a certain blanket or a certain rug that they have for playtime. The one thing I want to emphasize that I notice a lot with kids now, with the toys that are available, often there's some just really neat toys, and they really look neat to us, that require the least amount of brain power or even physical power to get them to work. A child may just have to brush something lightly, and lights go off and bells go off and whistles and sounds and movement. And it's kind of neat. I think it's a neat way to start, but it's not, when you think about it, like, what is it involving for that child to do that action? It's not much, and they're getting this huge response for not a lot of work. So even though, it's not as popular now, I mean, the electronic toys are really neat, and sometimes they are a neat way to get attention with kids with vision impairment. Don't hesitate to use the simpler toys, the blocks, of contrasting color, the things that are going to require your child to use their brain, because it's only going to be helpful to them. Things that require more manipulation with their hands, instead of a toy that has a button you press for a shape, that says the shape, have one that they have to actually move to fit into places, and to use their, just to use their motor skills a little more. And I just feel that kids do much better learning if they're given more opportunities to really work at something. You can certainly interact them with some of the electronic and noisy and musical toys as well, but also give them a chance to do a little work. Keep in mind, if they have favorite toys, you can take them out to repeat things that they really like to do, but then always maybe introduce something new each time with a little more challenge, to give them a little opportunity to try something different. Also, you may notice with the kids, I see this a lot with kids with albinism, they'll look at something, and often they hold it really close to look at something and examine it, and that's really good that they study it and really, want to see an object. But sometimes I notice they'll play with things, and then they'll put them to the side, and then when they go to retrieve them, they don't necessarily look for it. They know it's there, and then they'll just reach for it and kind of find it tactily. And that's a good skill to have too, but often too, if I'm engaged in play with a child, I kind of purposely move something so that they have to look. And it encourages them to use their vision better to, because they have it there to use, and sometimes they just really need to work at it a little more. So move things around a little bit so that it's a little more challenging for them to find things. A big part of the toys, too, is making them pick up and put things away, and that's just a really good skill, a lot of times, just the picking up, because, using the depth perception, sometimes that's an issue. You might see the kids go to put something in and kind of not hit it on target. They're not getting it centered. But if you work at maybe doing a two-handed, them holding onto a bucket while putting it in, it helps them locate it. But picking up and cleaning up is another great way for them to learn as well. Okay, for bedtime, just in your daily routine for bedtime, children know it's bedtime. They should know just by the time of day. They finish dinner, things are starting to quiet down. They can see that it's getting dark outside, so they know it's time. I used to have a signal at my house. We had a train that went by on this field. It was about, it was about a half a mile from the house, so the train would come by right about 7 o'clock. So the train whistle would come, and I would go, oh, it's time for bed. Everybody had to run to bed, and it was okay when they were real little, but then they got older, and it was still sunny out. They go, but Mom, the sun's out, But anyhow, they knew that was their signal, time for bed. They should really have a predictable routine before bed, maybe have some of their favorite objects. Have some quiet songs. Their stories are always good to get the kids settled in. Some kids with more significant visual impairments may have difficulties with sleep patterns, but generally with albinism, the kids are getting a lot of visual input, so they know the day-night difference visually, so there generally isn't that much problem with that. But like I said, just keep the sound soft, kind of monotonous and slow, so that kind of relax them off to sleep. Okay, one of my personal favorite times for learning and playing was the bathtub. Not for me, for the kids so much. But anyhow, that's a great opportunity to do so much learning. You can have toys. There's so much neat textures. There's, different sounds that come in with the water running and sounds you can make in the water. And this is a really good time, for learning. Also, it's a great time, just as a little advice, for eating popsicles. I never let my kids eat popsicles unless they're in the bathtub, because all the mess would just go right in the water. So anyhow, it's a really good natural way for the child to start learning their body parts, even if they're little enough where you're doing the washing. As you're washing, you say, I'm washing your arm. Start doing your right arm, your left arm. You count the toes. You're doing counting. It's just a great opportunity to play and to learn in the tub and be clean at the same time. Also, just encourage the baby to pat the water to make splashes. You think of the lather that the soap makes as another texture. And also it's a time too where the child can practice squeezing and pushing, things like that. They can use all kinds of gross motor and fine motor activities in the tub. Okay, I'm going to move on to that. Okay, and then going out. I know sometimes going out, is a good opportunity, and at all opportunities you have to take your child out and explore the community, the better. I think the kids that sometimes are the best adjusted are the ones that do get chances to go out and see other people, have other people see them as well. We just recently talked about in a discussion group the supermarket syndrome, we call it. And this is when you're out in town or in the community with your child and people are either asking questions that you may think are rude or silly, or they're looking at your child funny or making comments. This is something that can be a difficult time, and some people may choose just not to bring their child out because they don't want to have to deal with things like this, but it is an important thing to do. We talked about some solutions to that, to questions. You may just kind of work it over in your head, a standard response you give to people when they ask. I guess my question always was, oh, your husband must have blonde hair, or something like that. And I was like, well, no, not really. But, sometimes people you don't know really well, you don't want to go into a big explanation, but come up with some short answers that you can give people. One of the things that the registration area, we shared in the early intervention discussion, are these little cards that you can hand out. And they have pictures of kids of all nationalities who have albinism, and it has a brief explanation on what albinism is. And if you don't feel like discussing it with people, that's an easy way to kind of, be polite about it, but get people off your back and not have to worry about it. As you're traveling, though, in the community, even when we're in the car, it's so good to talk about what you're driving by, landmarks. I know one time you say, okay, there's the McDonald's on the right. That means we're close to Grandma's house. These things are really good, just in general, even as the child gets older, because if they, there's a possibility they may drive, but if they don't, they're going to be relying on people taking them places. And one of the most important things I always tell my teenagers is, can you tell somebody how to get to your house? Even totally blind kids, it's like you need to tell someone, if you're 10 miles away, how to get to your house, even if you've never driven it. So talk about landmarks, talk about features of the house on the outside that would make it more noticeable, and always just keep that as part of the conversation. Also think about some parent and infant community programs, if you can get out and do any activities that are available in your local park districts or local communities, to go out as much as you can into the community and get the kids mixed in. The more they mix in, the more it's not a big deal, and nobody really makes a big deal out of the differences. Okay, one of the other favorite places is just in the kitchen. If you're getting things ready, always keep your child as part of the process. Let them know that food doesn't magically appear. They need to know where it comes from. That you first to go to the store. If you go to the grocery store, let them help you put things away, and talk about what it is and why this thing goes in the refrigerator. It needs to be cold. All these concepts are really great learning opportunities. And then another one, the great one that I always like to get the kids involved in, is doing laundry, one of my favorite things. But just talking about colors and matching, you can have them help sort socks and learn about things like that. Kids with albinism tend to have really, their color perception is always, generally, I shouldn't say always, but is very often a very good, acute, color vision. I often hear kids using color, identifying their friends by the color of their jacket, but they really use color as a clue for identifying things. So talk about color a lot. And go beyond the red, green, and primary colors, things like that. Talk about aqua and fuchsia, and if you can get into that, it really is helpful, and it's good for them to be able to describe things in the future. Once again, too, if kids have laundry, let them help put things away so they know where they are, so they can find their own things, and be able to get things on their own and not be as reliant on everyone else to take care of their needs. And then the last part I want to discuss is just getting dressed. Once again, if you're dressing, you can talk about body parts, having them identify it, talk about your left foot, your right foot. These are all really important. And as much as possible, let your child really assist, in getting dressed in the learning process. Even if it's just a small part of it, the more they're able to do, the better it is for them. And the last thing is toileting. When that starts coming about, it's always a fun process, but make sure you use descriptive language. Think about different cues that they may have, when they need to use the toilet. Label their functions. You need to make sure that they know what's happening. Fortunately, with albinism, they can see. Sometimes kids that are totally blind, you encourage them, they need to touch so they understand what's happening, and then learn that's something you don't want to touch from now on, or on a regular basis. But make sure you're able to use the concepts and work with them in that area as well. Okay. With that, are there any questions or any concerns that you have just in your daily interaction with the children that have, appeared to be a problem for you, that you have any questions about? Yes? It's just really good. Like I say, the simpler, the better. You want to look for good contrast. Even too, if the child has like a play area, I like to put a solid color, make sure it's like a solid color quilt or something that they're playing on because it's easier to find things. But, you know, toys, you mentioned that, working on depth perception as they get older, you know, start getting smaller things. So they're working on putting things into small areas because it truly can be helpful if kids are given an opportunity to kind of work on these skills. You know, they can do well. I don't know, and like I said, a lot of sounding toys are good. I a lot of times like to use simple toys that make a simple sound to play hide and seek. If you can, that's really good for training their sound localization. If you hide something behind a chair or something and then have the child try to find it, it really helps them tune in. And I've had some kids really develop some amazing sounds, you know, sound localization skills by doing that. Another toy, I guess I've seen a lot of kids with albinism, they kind of keep their head down or their eyes down, and I think a lot of it, the factor is the glare coming in from above, and also they're looking at a closer area. They don't have to struggle to see far away. But encourage your child to look out. Some toys that I've really liked, there's some like a helicopter toy that shoots up, and it encourages them to track up to the ceiling and follow it across the room. Sometimes even taking a flashlight, like taking a darkened room and take a flashlight on the wall and make the circle move around, or have the kids try to catch it, you know, catch the flashlight beam. Those are really good for working on, you know, some nice eye patterns for scanning. But just about anything. But like I said, the ones that just kind of drive me crazy are the ones that are just too much, you know, too much stimulus, you know, for not much action, you know. Okay, anything? Yes?
My grandson is a year and a half, and he's had early intervention services coming to the home twice a month since he was 6 months old. But last year, they basically said that they only felt they needed to come out once a month because he was hitting his developmental milestones appropriately. What do you think about that? Are they trying to conserve some educational dollars, or is that, you know, really appropriate?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Certain areas of the country are struggling for services or for qualified people that are able to do it. Certainly, if they've been seeing your grandson for twice a month and they've been working on specific goals and he's meeting them, then that's a good sign. I think the fact that they're just monitoring, you know, the grandson well, and he seems to be going along all right, that's good. But, you know, I don't know, it's hard to say. If the services are available, there kind of are always new things you can work on. Even if a kid, but I always felt in early intervention, even if they were up to par, they were at level, I would push them a little harder because they're going to be struggling as they get older. Things are going to get harder, and their vision's going to, you know, give them a little bit more of a challenge as they get older. So if you can work on skills, like I said, these, you know, like a lot of tracking and fine motor skills, if you can do that ahead of time, sometimes that's really helpful. So you have to you see, but it's supposed to be a team, so the decision should be a team decision, and if there is a concern, you should address that. Okay, anyone else? Okay, yes? Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I was going to let Julie do, but I'm going to address the orientation and mobility. This varies. I guess if you observe the people here, you see most of the people are walking around independently. Some people have canes. You know, it's something that they can always recommend, but in general, and I don't want to make blanket statements, but in general, you know, children with albinism or people with albinism are able to travel fairly well, you know, without the cane, especially when they're little. I'm not sure how much use they would get out of it. What? Oh, with the cane, yeah. And I think too, because they are getting a lot of visual input, you know, so the cane is not going to be the tool that it's going to be for someone who's significantly visually impaired. I don't want to totally say that they're not useful because some people do find them useful older, but at this age, I'm not really sure. You should, if it's available to you, I would, have an orientation mobility, consultant come and look. Often my experience too, they may not provide the service while the child is young. They'll say wait till they're in school, just because they don't have them available. But certainly if they offer it to you or you suggest it, you could certainly have an assessment done.
In New Jersey, they're highly, they're very much an early intervention.
Mm-hmm.
If he has an O&M next week coming, check him out, make sure he's okay, and see he's going to need the keys and all that. So
Yeah.
He has two teachers, one from the division from the blind and one from the county. One from the county wants to make the division said no way.
Yeah.
And we're kind of stuck in the middle.
It's hard, and you need to see, I guess too, when my kids were little, it kind of was brought up about the cane, and I had just come from a NOAA conference, and I said, well, wait a minute, everybody else seems to be all right, and I wasn't sure about that, and I know my kids kind of fought it at the time, so I think certainly if I thought it was a safety issue that I would introduce it, but if not, it is hard. Just as far as that, some of the things that an orientation and mobility person can work on, in addition to a vision teacher, a lot of this stuff are like concepts. They work because so much of travel is like talking about where you're going or being able to describe a route. So they work on concepts of even shapes. Shapes are one of the beginning things. I remember my kids' orientation mobility book had 1 million shapes in it. And by the time they were in, 4 or 5 years old, they would know all kinds of shapes. I remember once someone showed them a roof of a house, and the lady said, that's a triangle. And my kid said, no, that's a trapezoid, because it had a flat top. But it's because the orientation mobility person did that, and it helped them understand the concept of room design, where they are in space. Some of the other things, let me just tell you. They work on just, I guess even on sorting, things like that, understanding, the differences between items. That's kind of a beginning of orientation mobility concepts. Orientation mobility relies a lot on hearing, and the kids can be really trained to do that. Even if you're out walking with your kids on your own or you're crossing a street, stop, before you cross and automatically go and just say, do you hear any cars coming? Do you hear the sounds? And talk about the sounds, and that will better prepare them for independent crossing later. Let me see some of the other things, and I have a handout for you too, just some concerns. Orientation mobility also works a lot on just terms of body image. Talking about directionality, like walking, even terms like forward, backward, side to side, things like that, left and right. As the child gets older, you can even start talking about directions, and because that'll be a really helpful concept for them. What are some of the other things? I talked about landmarks before. As you're walking, talk about, passing like the fire hydrant, and you know that our house is 2 houses past the fire hydrant. Those are good clues. Also just like balancing and turning around and walking, forward, backward, making an about face. Talk about, 180-degree turns, things like that. Those are all good, just good skills for beginning orientation and mobility. The only other thing too is I talk about if there's an area where it seems like your child, sometimes if there's like extreme glare, their vision's just, you're having a really tough time because of sunlight and you're worried about safety, to teach them how to trail along a wall, by using their hand, not the flat part of the hand, but the top of their hand to trail along the side of something, just to kind of give them a little guidance so they know where they're going. And sometimes that's a good skill to have. Also, trailing helps them know if they're going to be coming to something that's going to be hitting them in the face or in the head like that. It helps to have that as an extra skill. Yes?
Training or picking up on social cues, because they usually might be missing some of that. Even if simple things as waving bye-bye, there seems to be lagging behind in my grandson's development. When he's close, lots of smiles, clearly likes people, giggles, laughs, but anything over this distance, and I know he's missing a lot of the social cues. What are some things to help augment that?
Well, that is an issue, especially some of the slight gestures or the facial expressions. Those are going to be difficult for the child to see at a distance. The first solution is to get in closer and ask people, or if you're with a child and say, "Oh, Grandma's waving bye-bye," you need to use the verbal thing to encourage it. That can be something, even as the child gets older, to be able to pick up on social cues too. Sometimes it's difficult, but sometimes you might have to do some specific modeling or training with them to help them understand, or to pay more attention to that, like even to pay attention to people's inflection in their voices. If they can't see the expression on their face, they'll have to tune into other clues that'll let them know what's happening. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Julie, and then she'll give you some more of the other logistics on working with the early intervention.
Good afternoon. Just to talk about some of the things that Sue was just talking about. As far as the socialization skills, I just came back I'm with NAPFI, that's the National Association for Parents of Children with Visual Impairments, and we have chapters throughout the country. And I just came back from the Arkansas State Chapter Conference that I was at, and one of the moms, now granted this child, her little girl is totally blind, but one of the things she literally taught her daughter is, because she was so concerned about being accepted socially, besides the fact of hold your head up, look at who you're talking to. I mean, those basic concepts that some of our children don't pick up on naturally. They hold their heads down, things like that. Teaching them that, but she actually taught her daughter different facial expressions. Even though her daughter couldn't see them, she put her hands on her face, on the daughter's hands on the mom's face while the mom did the facial expressions, and then she took her hands and put them on the daughter's face to show her how to make the same expressions. The little girl is now 7 years old, and most people do not even recognize that she has a visual impairment, never mind that she's blind, because her facial expressions look like everybody else. Now that you don't hear of too often, but that's one of the things you can be doing with your kids, is really hands-on, teaching them, explaining all the time about what's going on, explaining the little noises. Do you hear the birds up in the trees? What up in the tree means? Lifting them up, putting some movement behind the concepts. That's really critical for kids to learn. You were talking about toys before. Simple is better. The electronic toys are great, but make sure if your child is using electronics toys, they're using them for what they were made for, and they're not just sitting there flipping a switch and getting the same sound over and over. You want them, because some of our kids learn to play one way with the toy, their way with the toy, and they don't learn those other ways to play with it, and then when they go to preschool or into kindergarten, they can't interact the same way as our other kids do with the regular kids, because they've formed their own way of playing, and you have to encourage them to play with the toy the way it was designed to be played with. Doesn't mean they have to do it all the time, but play with it at times. At least say, this is the time we're going to play with mommy or daddy, and say, we're going to play with it this way, and then show them the correct way to do it. The color contrast is really critical for kids, especially for improving their use of their vision between eating, and even sometimes in the bathtub, you can put down a colored mat in the bottom of the tub so the child can get the idea of the distance away of how far down he might have to step, that sort of thing. They sell lots of, the mats that go in the bottom of the tub so that you don't slip. There's some of those colored ones you might want to put in. If your child has a very favorite color and you're having difficulty with learning to spoon feed or drink out of a cup, take that favorite color and turn it into the object you want it. Like if it's red, get a red cup. So the child is enticed by the color and then can use the cup more efficiently. The other part, when we were talking about hand over hand, one of the things, if your child is not using their hands proficiently or a lot, what you might want to do is have them put their hand over your hand, like when you're cooking with them, if you're mixing and things like that, and you want to show them the correct way to hold things, have them put their hand on top of your hand rather than the the reverse. Because what we've learned recently is neurologically, your pathways to your brain are different if someone's over your hand versus under your hand. And so you want your child's hand on top of your hand because that's giving your child the normal pathway, developmental pathways forming. Whereas if your hand is on top, their tactile pathway is learning versus their motor pathway. So that's just something to keep in mind. Toys, household objects. Those are the best thing for visually impaired kids to play with. Pots and pans, boxes, let them go into your bottom cabinets, empty it all out. You can use it for counting. You can use it sorting time. You can use it for stacking. I mean, everyday household things where other children might see you using all of that. Our kids will miss some of that stuff. And so you want to encourage them hands-on, play with it. Gets messy at times and you have to put it all back in, but have them help you put it back in. So that when they go to school and the teacher's saying it's cleanup time, everybody needs to help. Your child is not the one sitting by himself not helping with cleanup because they've never had to do it before. You want to encourage a lot of those normal skills at home so when they go to school, it's not because they're visually impaired they're not helping clean up, it's because never had to do it before, so why should I do it now? But it will always look on, oh, that's the blind kid, that's the visually impaired kid, doesn't want to help us. So you want to kind of develop some very normal patterns that everybody else is doing. At sleep time, some of the issues that come up is they don't use their vision as much, although kids with albinism do, so they do get tired. But one thing I would urge you not to encourage is to have your child fall asleep watching a movie or TV. Because a lot of times what happens is some of our kiddos are so intent on wanting to finish that movie that they'll make themselves stay up in order to watch the movie versus if you just had the lights down, quiet music going, your body can relax and your children can do what is very natural to them is close their eyes and go to sleep. When the movie's on, the music's blaring, it's very hard for the children to learn those normal sleep patterns. They might fall asleep, then suddenly wake up and realize, oh, I've got to see the rest of the movie. Go and turn, look towards the movie rather than staying in a deep sleep. Reading is critical at this age. It is at any age, but you need to read to your kiddos. That's what's going to entice them to read on their own. You're going to be their first teachers of reading. You're the ones that will point out the pictures in the book. What's in the picture, what color the picture is, what is the little girl doing in the book, is the boy kicking a ball. All of that stuff is really critical for our kids. You think they might be getting it because they're sitting next to you looking at it, but remember a lot of the times when you say, do you see the ball? They'll say yes because they don't know what not to see it is. So you might want to say, oh, can you find the ball in the picture and see if they can locate it and see how close they have to get to it to locate it. So you are not only their parent and their best teacher, but you're also learning about their vision so you can turn around and say to their teachers, this is the way Susie needs to hold the book. This is how close she needs to get to it. When the ball is just a little half inch, she doesn't seem to see it, but when it's an inch ball on the page, she's able to see it. Those are the types of things that you only pick up by looking and doing with your children. Teachers are good. I'm a teacher. I can pick up on a lot of that, but parents still are the best teachers of their children. So you can do a lot of that. And the last thing, I know it's early, but the last thing that I want to do, and then we can open it up for questions if you have any. Use the proper words for everything when you're out there. Don't use baby language, because when the kids go to school, if they've got a strange word for their cup or that they want to drink, and they go up to the teacher and they start asking for whatever the word is, my baba instead of bottle. Some teachers might pick on, oh, she wants a bottle, not a bottle, it's a drink. I want a drink. Teach your kids the proper words for everything. We had one little kid who, unfortunately, I can't remember what the word was, but he had a unique word for going to the bathroom, needing to use the bathroom. Nobody told the teachers. And this poor little guy was really in a lot of pain because he didn't know where the bathroom was, he didn't want to wet his pants, and he couldn't get the point across that he needed to go to the bathroom. So it's cute when they're little kids to use all this cute baby talk, but once they start going to school, and our kids go to school a little bit earlier sometimes than the other kids, they start usually in preschools at age 3, you want to kind of encourage that proper use of language so that they don't run into things at home. It's cute, but once they go out into the public or into schools, people are not going to understand them. So you want to encourage that language use. And as far as canes go, that's really, in my opinion, at this age, a family matter. It's your decision. Some kids are mature enough to have canes at this age. Other kids, I totally agree. I know some little kids, they just use it to whip around, or they think it's funny if they take it and bang it against everything. Canes are there for a purpose. They're not there for toys. If they're old enough to know that the cane has a use and this is how we use it, that's one thing. But if they're one of those kids that just like it to run around and bang on things and everything, you really have to watch that, because it's much harder to undo bad habits than it is to teach newer ones. So, if you have a conflict between your two professionals working with your child, have the two of them get together and talk about it and come to a conclusion. You shouldn't have to be the broker in the middle of all of that. So, are there any other concerns or questions about going to school or anything that you want to bring up? How often to see a vision specialist? In terms of a doctor or in terms of the teachers? Boy, that really varies. I come out of a background of early intervention and preschool, as well as school-age kids. And my experience has been, especially on the early end, more is better than less, because there's so much that our kids miss that we don't realize they're missing unless you're with them or doing things with them. And teachers, regular ed teachers, special ed teachers are really good, but they don't see things the same way we do. I see, on my own caseload, I see my preschool kids a minimum of an hour a week. And that's not an hour of a block of time. That's either half an hour, 20 minutes, 3 times a week. I spread it out. But as they get older, they don't need as much. But I bank up on the early years because they need so much more time. And I try to see them, if it's preschool kids, I see them in their classrooms. I never pull them out for anything. And so I'm working with them on their art projects, adapting it right there on the spot so they can be doing the same thing the other kids are doing, but just in a manner to fit their needs. I shouldn't say most. Programs I am familiar with, the 3 or 4 that I've worked in, we saw children once a week. But, times have changed, and one of the big issues that you guys need to realize, if you don't already, is there's a major shortage in this country of VI teachers. And on top of that, not every early interventionist is trained in vision. And so you really need to look for a dual certified person if you can, and if not, you need to somehow get that vision component into your ISFPs, your family service plans, because that's the critical piece with our kids. I've seen some early intervention pieces where because the kid is 3, he's supposed to be normal kids ride trikes, supposedly. They had this child, his goal on his plan was to ride a tricycle. The kid couldn't walk yet. And it was all due to vision issues, and they weren't addressing that piece before they were going to do an age-appropriate activity. I know everybody out there says we have to teach to age-appropriateness, natural environment. Yes, we do, but we have to meet the needs of the children. So it's where the children are at you start, not where the tests say they should be. You start with what the children are doing now and work towards that goal, but you've got to meet those steps in between. Otherwise, your kids aren't going to do it. So once a week is kind of standard for the programs I've been in. Okay, early intervention varies, I think, state to state. First of all, I would start with your local school. You can call your local school, say you have an infant. I call your local school, say that you have a child with a visual impairment who's an infant. Who do they work with for early childhood? Or you can call your State Department of Education, Special Education, ask for the early childhood specialist. But your local schools should have all that information also, because across the country there's I don't know if it's a law or what, but it's called Child Find, and all schools are responsible a couple of times a year of sending out to the local community that we're doing Child Find evaluations. And prior to preschool, kids can come in and you can have your child evaluated for whatever area you think there might be a need. So the school districts are well aware of early intervention programs, and they probably could help you. If you can't get satisfaction from them, then call your State Department, and they definitely will know. Because some states have developmental disabilities, some states have blind services. Arizona does not have a state-level blind service. They have the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and within that department they have some specialists in blindness. So there's lots of different routes to go when it comes to finding services. But earlier service is better. Don't just wait until they're school age to start getting them. Anything else?
When and how do you start talking to your child with autism about the fact that he or she is different, that their vision is different, and when do you start talking to their services?
Hey, Susan? Raising a totally blind daughter, it was just part of our life. I just talked about it all the time, that she doesn't see the way other people see, and she uses her hands, I use my eyes. Concepts to this day, she can't get because she doesn't know what it is to use your eyes. But I think the earlier the better. It's just a natural part. It's no big deal. It's just who they are. And I think if that's the way they're raised, that this is the way you look, this is how it is, you don't have to constantly talk about it, but it's just a natural progression. I know in one of the sessions I was in, they were talking about how cruel kids can be in school, but to be honest with you, in all my years of education, I've run into very few incidences where the students I work with visual impairments are picked on because of their visual impairment. 9 times out of 10, they're being picked on for something else. They just happen to be visually impaired. All kids get picked on. But the more you talk about it and the more you yourself accept it and treat it as a no big deal situation, which I don't think it is, the more natural it is for the kids. And Sue said it before, and we were talking about it in the IEP process this morning, that the earlier you can teach the kids to defend themselves, to talk about just in very normal terms, this is who I am, I don't see as well, I have to wear dark glasses because the light bothers my eyes, the better off the children are going to be, and the better off their friends are going to be. They'll have a better understanding. It's much better to be open and honest with their friends than to try and cover it up, and the friends keep wondering, why can't she do this, or why can't he do this? And then they make up all these weird reasons why they're not doing it, when it's just, oh, the kid can't see. If you just take the toy and put it in his hand, he'll do it. Oh, okay. Kids don't think the way we do, don't forget. They're on a much more basic level. All they want to know is why she can't find the shoe when it's right next to her. Just say, oh, she can't see it because it's the same color as the rug. Put a hand on it, she'll find it. That's it. So, I don't think there's a magic age, and I don't think waiting helps at all. Because if you wait too long, there's other things that start happening. Hormones start kicking in. They want to really be like any other kids. So within themselves, they're trying to figure out who they are and how they're going to cope. And now on top of that, they don't even know why they are the way they are because no one has really been honest with them and talked to them. My students that I have going to their IEP meetings in kindergarten. They may not add anything to their plans, but they're there to know that there's nothing wrong with them and that we're just talking about what's going to be good for them next year. You got anything to add to that, Sue, for the albinism?
No, I guess the one thing, you guys are here at the cutting edge of the best information right now. The albinism book on parenting a child with albinism. It's going to address all areas. I brought it in here. It's, it's out. That's something everyone should have. And I think I'm going to take it and not only have it for families, I'm going to share that with the teachers and have them have it available. So that's something that you should look at. But, it's individual with your family. Like Julie mentioned, albinism and the vision is just one other thing that's different. Maybe one of the other siblings can't jump as high as the other or isn't as good. One can play the piano, one can do this. It's just another characteristic. And talking about it in a very frank manner and not a big deal is probably something, the more it's addressed, it's not a big deal. As she was talking too, Julie mentioned the reading thing. Just one real quick thing. Some of the best books like Spot, the dog books with really good contrast. But also I start introducing the I Spy books where they start with the simple ones where kids are learning to scan and track across the page to look for things. It's just really good visual pursuit activities. So look for the I Spy books. Yeah, the simple ones to start out with. And even do that at home. I say about making things simple, but start hiding things, into a group of things and let them pick things out just to help them scan and search for things. The last thing, I also mentioned the albinism parenting book. I brought here too, and down in the last handouts, there's a thing, there is a table in the albinism town square, but the American Foundation for the Blind just started this, did you?
But talk about it. We passed it up. Donnie, you
The
passed
yellow
it out
sheets?
already.
Oh, okay. But anyhow, Family Connect is a brand new site. It just was launched the end of April. There's a section on early intervention. I'm sure there's a link even maybe for state agencies for early intervention, but explore that. Take time to do it. It also has a link to NOAA in there too to address albinism in particular, but it will have things about services in your state, about the law, and anything pertinent, any general family questions regarding visual impairment should be on there.
NAFI and the American Foundation for the Blind got together and put that site together, and it just was launched in April. We have over 500, it is at free cost. There's over 500 families, and what happens is you go on, you can sign up and be very specific about, I'm interested in the early childhood groups, I'm interested in albinism, and be very specific on what you want. And then what happens is it will automatically link you to sites that meet your needs. And there's also a piece in there that you can be alerted if something new comes up or something that they think families with children with albinism might want to know. They'll be able to get back to you and alert you right then and there to it. It's a really active site. You can post questions. You can go on message boards. There are teachers on the site. We're hoping doctors will join it, but we've got a lot of families, and it's the third site that the American Foundation has set up, and it's the first site that's had over 500 families within the first couple of months. Usually it takes over a year to get that many people to sign up on the site. So there are a lot of families out there already utilizing it. So you might want to, if you don't have to sign up if you don't want to, but go on and just look at it. There's videos of families, there's interviews with children, there's interviews with teenagers. So it's one of the most broad-based sites that I've seen in a long time that you can go on and just play with and explore. And you've got the handouts. It's the orange sheet that was passed out. So thank you. Any other questions, concerns? We have an evaluation that you have to do. They won't let you out the door unless you do it. Donna's going to trip you. So.
What I would tell him or her is that NOAA is an organization that lets kids or adults with albinism to meet other people with albinism, and that we get to go to many exotic places, and it's just awesome, especially the pool.
I'm over to see my friends, everybody that I share this with, and where I'm from, it's only me with albinism who feel left out.
Not being the only albino person, like there are like so many other people, and I don't feel like left out and all that stuff.
I'm just gonna say, like, don't be ashamed to get up close or something, and like do what you need to do to see stuff and things like that. Because it'll really help. It'll really help you, and if you take time to do these things, you might get a head start in front of regular people.
Yeah, like go to Noah. It's like if you're feeling left out, go to Noah, because I mean there are other people who have albinism. You wouldn't feel left out. You can like share experiences. It's like
No, I felt left out, and found out about Noah, so I feel
Just seeing other people, because this is the first time I saw other people with albinism, and just what they're like.
And my friends that are albino over there, I get to reconnect with them every 2 years. And I just like to socialize and meet other people and discuss what they're.
I'm having a lot of fun. It's pretty cool because my brother has albinism also, but he's 11 and I'm 14, so I wanted to like see people my own age. And I certainly do. There's like a whole bunch of people walking around. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool.
like me too. Like I really want to drive, so I really want to get like information about that too, and then just jobs and college and yeah.
All you kids with albinism out there, and for everybody, just want you to understand that it's a great thing, not a disease. Great thing.
Yeah, people saying it's contagious. It's not. It's not a contagious, horrible disease. It's awesome.
I'm harmless. I don't bite hard.
Oh yeah,
You don't bite much.
And for those of you who think that we're freaks, we're not.